Hi, my name is Rui. I'm your host. Welcome to the Music Success Podcast Show. And today we have a guest from Southern California. She's submerged in music from birth, having a mother who two elder sisters were active musicians in the household and influenced her. By the age of 7, she was producing her own radio programs, including her own DJ persona, Kay Dee Jay, on her own cassette tape recorder. At 11, she was writing music notation and submitting her compositions for voice, clarinet, and guitar to youth talent shows. In high school, she would record keyboard parts, alto saxophone, drum machine, guitar, vocals in her 4-track cassette recorder and Radio Shack microphone. Welcome to the show, Ava Lemert.
Thank you.
This is this is like the French version of your name. Your name is Ava Lemert, correct?
It's Ava Lemert.
Ava Lemert. Okay, so
Yeah.
so you're born and raised in California. You seem to come from a family where there was music around. I guess that was part of your upbringing. What made you decide to take this route and be in the music industry, since it's not the easiest place to make it?
Right. Well, I in school I played in the marching band, and I was the first girl drum major in my high school. Actually, one of only two in the whole district. That was something that was kind of fun. So I played through high school, and then I started in college. I went to USC, and I started as a music major because I, like in my bio, I was making up songs and recording them, and I had big dreams of. I even submitted a video to this. This is going to date me. To Star Search. It was a video show. It was like a precursor. It was many years before like America's Got Talent. That's sort of thing. And but then after I graduated college, I needed to work. And I've always been an artist. I used to do freelance work to supplement my student worker fees when I was in college. And I'd draw and design flyers and different things like that. And so I went into graphic design. So I really came back into music as a performer. That was about 16 years ago. And I joined a whole bunch of bands, really, really diverse kinds of bands. And I was at one time, I was in a 60-piece orchestra. I was also in there were 22 of us in a World War II era, like swing band. And I was in a community band, and I was founding member of a community marching band. We had people from like kids in school up to like 80-year-olds. So I kind of came back in it. I completely forgot how to read music, and I got back in it about 16 years ago. And then from there, I just got the bug again, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if I could still write. And so then I started getting some gear, and I got my saxophone restored so that I could actually play it again, and got back into writing. And finally, right at the end of 2009, I came out with my first CD. And from there, I've been releasing stuff every year. Now I'm doing lots of single releases, but I'm probably going to put together another album, but mainly digital releases. I don't really do a lot of the print CDs. It's a lot of work, a lot of cost up front.
Yeah. So you are pre-internet, and I understand that world because I'm pre-internet. When I started, as a musician, there was no internet, right? And I still remember where we musicians would put up their own shows, charge tickets at the door, put their own flyers, go around, contact magazines, newspapers, put ads, etc. So it's you're from that generation Let's break it down a little bit, because part of the deal here on this platform is we want to show people how you can make it a living in the music industry with basically almost nothing, right? Which is your case. So you started to, how did you start it? Do you go around, start playing in bands, cover bands?
Yes.
Did you guys go around and distribute pamphlets, flyers? How did you go through that process so people understand?
Yeah. So I guess starting at um, when I got back into music. So that's really where I think it's probably the most helpful, because that's actually when I started getting paid to perform. So yeah, I wanted to get back into music, and I wanted to get an experience of actually performing in front of people. And the only way for me to do that at that point was to be in a group. I wasn't able to do that on my own. I'd never done anything like that, other than being in, marching band, jazz band, high school. So anyway, but yeah, when I was in those groups that I mentioned, the one group that I was in, I was their webmaster in the early days. Oh my goodness, that was one of the things that I specialized in as a graphic designer, because back at that point, there weren't very many actual graphic designers that also could code. And coming from aerospace, I could code. And so I was their webmaster. And then as a graphic designer, I also did all the all the flyers. Yeah. So we do flyers and contact the papers, and try to get the events posted in their events calendar section, like for the Sacramento Bee, which is the newspaper here, and then there's also the Sacramento News and Review, which yeah, it was to get those dates printed in the printed calendar. There weren't the online, music events calendars. And as far as um, yeah, that was pretty much it. Just getting those gigs posted in the newspapers to drive traffic, and then word of mouth, telling people, having flyers, printing up those little show posters
Yeah,
as cheaply as possible.
I absolutely, like as many and as cheaply as possible you can do. I still remember.
Yeah.
Now, what's your viewpoint? Like, having gone through all that, what's your viewpoint on the music industry nowadays?
It's kind of a blessing and a curse that you have so many of the tools that used to be you were locked out from. I mean, when I first really wanted to do music in high school, let's say, and I wanted to create a demo, because I had lots of songs on those cassette tapes,
Right.
but I knew that, I can't sell those. You have to go to a recording studio. Well, you've got to buy the recording studio time. You've got to have an engineer. You've got to be familiar enough with how that works that you can get in there and record and get it done. You can't, noodle around all the time, because it was so expensive. It was just absolutely unattainable then. So it's wonderful that we have, digital audio workstations and home studios, and you can actually create what they call red book, masters. You can actually do in the box mastering. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, no, you can't. No, you can't." But you can, and you can get it distributed. That's beautiful. It's wonderful. The problem is, as soon as you release something, it disappears. Unless you're, it's like a bell curve. Unless you're right at the very top, I don't know, having with millions and millions and millions of fans all over the world, it's just like a sea. You're like a drop of, like a sand pebble on the beach. So much comes out every second of every day all over the world that's the challenge. Is yes, you can actually create commercial music on your own,
Mhm.
but that also means that there's millions and millions and millions and millions of other people that are doing it too. How do you rise above? And it it is not enough to have good material,
Right.
you know, because everybody, obviously, why would you do that if you didn't think that your music was any good? Why would you put yourself through the torture? It's just that there's so much out there. That's the trouble with it right now is that it's very hard to differentiate yourself, even if you're a little bit different,
Yeah.
because attention spans are so short that unless you're right up there as soon as somebody logs on, they're not going to take the time to look you up.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a good, helpful answer or.
Well, it is your answer, so it is helpful. And I'm going to ask you this next question, which is a little bit of it's my viewpoint, right? And I don't know if you agree, but would you agree that is the correct statement to say, in spite of the fact that everybody has access to record, produce, mix, and distribute their music nowadays, there's still an aspect of the music business or the industry that is lacking because it's a sea of music. And how do you go from releasing your art form and raise above all the noise? Is that correct to say?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the more that if somebody's getting into music, let's say if I were to advise someone, I'd say be prepared, be be I guess maybe I should say humble enough to realize that it's very possible that you'll be doing everything. You're going to need to be a jack of all trades, and there's going to be a lot of compromise if you want to keep going. But
Mhm.
I think that if you're willing to learn enough about some of the other aspects of being a professional musician, and that goes for all the creative arts, I think. If you're willing to do some of the more mundane, um, some of the stuff where the business side, you got to learn the business side. That might be that might be next to the music that you're creating, but that's so important because for a while at least, you're probably going to be doing it all yourself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then if you do get to a point where you're really famous and you're big, then I could see that the problem might be, boy, make sure that you have people on your team that are trustworthy. And we've all heard the stories of the artists that they find out that their manager has been embezzling and not giving them their royalties. And of course, all the 360 deals with record companies. Oh my gosh, there's so many shysters out there. Um, to if you could do most of it yourself, or maybe family or friends, but really close, tight people you trust, you'll be okay. And one of the things that you just jogged my thought process on, um, some of the new artists and some of the issues that they're dealing with. In fact, in the one of the NAMM Believe in Music breakout sessions, and they were talking about monetization. It was shocking to me that some very accomplished, very prolific writers don't know how to lay out their credits and their metadata. And I'm actually the next thing that I need to do is I actually need to go through and resubmit some of my albums and tracks from years past because I didn't even understand how to get all of my credits
Right.
for the songwriting, for the instruments I play, for the heck, even the album artwork, because I do all of that stuff. But a lot of my albums, it just says artist Ava Lemert. It doesn't say anything else. And so that hurts me. So that's where I thought, okay, if I'm going through this now and it's going to take a long time, but I was shocked to meet some of these artists where they said, where, where do you put the meta tags? What do you use for that? How do what are you talking about? And oh boy, who knows how much music they've released out there, and they're going to have to try to link themselves properly with the like a performing rights organization or sound exchange or something, backtrack and try to get some revenue. I don't know, but yeah, and they keep changing it too. They keep expanding it, and yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing is going back and going, okay, back when I didn't understand how to enter my metadata for the titles and the tracks and all the credits and stuff, I got to go back there and see what's missing. And there's a lot of stuff that's missing.
Exactly. And
my recordings.
So for the people who don't understand what metadata is, could you please explain so people are not in the loop? Okay, what does that mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, it's basically when you have it's either you or let's say your recording engineer or a mastering engineer. When you create a file, your music track file, let's say it's a wave or an AIF or a FLAC, but when you send that out to the distributors or radio or anywhere you want your music used, you've got to have their little tags encoded into the file. And it's usually MP3 format. Wave or AIF, they don't have the same information encoded. When they go out to an MP3, you've got to have the track number, the album, artist name, of course, the title, as much of that information as you can put into, and all the credits, like who did the vocals, who did the mixing, who did the mastering, who was the recording engineer, who is the MIDI program, MIDI sequencer, or that sort of, all of those credits need to be entered into I use WaveLab as my mastering. And there is it gets daunting. For each song, you got to enter all that information. You don't have to. That just means that if you don't, nobody's going to know, and you won't get the credits, and you won't start popping up.
Yeah.
Because that's how I've been frustrated, because I've noticed that I'm not showing up on, a lot of my albums aren't showing up on like All Music or Music Brains. And I'm trying to update my credits for the Recording Academy. And I'm finding that, oh no, when I resubmit, I'm missing a lot. I have lots and lots and lots of credits, but they're getting more specific. You have to be able to point somebody to a link to say, yeah, no, that's an actual discography database. Okay, let's count them up. How many credits does Ava have as vocalist, as saxophonist, as producer, yada, yada. So if you don't enter that information as you're exporting your files, however you create on a Mac, or I think it's usually AIFF files. Here on PC, it's Wave. I work in Wave files. You export to MP3, and that's where you can enter that. The metadata has got to be in the MP3 file, or else it comes up as track 1 and there's no name. And so then the DJs can't credit you either, and they can't link. If it's an online station, there's no way to link it because it's got to be in the file. And so it can be frustrating. A lot of that you can do, I think, in Audacity. I think there are some free tools on the creator side that you can provide a lot of that. Otherwise, you're going to be like me, and you're going to have to open up an Excel spreadsheet and wait possibly several months to see if TiVo or Rovi ever opens your file and cleans up their database with your information. Because according to them, I don't have a picture and I have no bio. And I guess the problem there would be if you aren't organized and have all of that information ready to go. It's a little overwhelming. And I haven't been that great about going back and just keeping up and checking on these different outlets. Like I said, like Music Brains and discography.com and some of these where now I have to go back several years, lots of recordings, and go through and
Let it
fix it.
up.
It's
Yeah.
going to take hours to do it, but if I don't do it now, I've got two more songs coming out in the next, 14 days that the two more songs will be dropping. So I've got to get that done now. Now my newer music is much better. Um, the tagging when I export, I understood that better. So that's much better. It's just some of my older albums. The links are not there and it's not tied to my name.
Mhm.
It gets really messy. It gets really crazy. And then if you think about it, I mean, I have probably the simplest setup because I am DIY. I'm doing it all myself. I don't have that many external credits. Then you've got to talk about splits. Then you've got to talk about, how do you divvy it up? If there is money to be made, you've got to have that all figured out. That's kind of intimidating. And then if you are with a label, who owns the masters? It's great to get an advance, but most artists, I think they get lured into the romance of, ooh, I'm going to be on the label and they're going to advance me, you know,
Yeah, but then you are,
50 grand.
yeah,
You're going to have to pay it back.
yeah, you have to pay it back. You are in debt, and it never ends really, and they own the masters perpetually
Yeah.
unless they decided to sell it back to you. Now, on that note, what do you feel has been the best advice you ever received in the music industry?
The best advice was to join a performing rights organization. I'm with BMI. Um, I've had people say, "Oh, why aren't you with ASCAP?" But I know now that it's very, very difficult to change. My works catalog is I've got so many songs. Some of them have never like come out as commercial recordings, but at least they're logged, and I've got a digital record of my songwriting as publisher and that sort of thing. But yeah, to sign up and actually have a performing rights organization that you can log in your songs every time you come up with a song, get it finished, do the recording session before you start the process of releasing it. You've got to wait for that registration to come through, and you've got to enter in your information into your works catalog. But that's the best, is in my opinion. And that could be because I'm I am my own, I'm songwriter. It might be different for other people that do covers or have like a songwriting team or are in a band. But yeah, I would say that's a number one, is to research and figure out for your situation which performing rights organization you're gonna join. Because then once you get that out of the way, then you're kind of on the radar, and your credits as songwriter, publisher start adding up. So
And what do you feel has been your biggest challenge so far?
probably going back to the beginning, just a huge body of work. It's really hard to rise above the din, to kind of to get to a spot where I feel like, okay, well, if I reached out to this artist or, this newspaper or TV show or something like that, that they'd say, they'd even kind of know who I am. That's the challenge, is obscurity is the challenge, I think, because it's an awful lot of work, just kind of. And I keep hearing people say, "Oh, is your music on iTunes?" Yes, yes, and I post it and post it, post it. Unless you get to the point where you're a household name, I don't think it's very difficult for people to really know that you're out there. It's like some of the big artists that from bygone eras. that are still recording and releasing music. And you go, gosh, I wonder if so and so is still, I wonder if they're still active in the industry.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are. It's just that you don't hear, they're not on the, I don't know,
on the
internet,
yeah.
yeah, on the news or whatever anymore. In a way, I, on a different scale, I suppose, I kind of feel that way because I see a lot of the trends in music right now that I don't like.
Yeah.
Um, I would not, I would not be willing to do that kind of music or to do that to my sound, or just, I wouldn't be willing to change to follow the trends. So my hope is that, trends come and go,
Mhm.
but if it's good, it can come back around. That's what I'm kind of, that's what I'm hoping for. But I think yeah, you're absolutely right. The pressure to, it's like, how many songs have you heard use the same drum track, the same beat? The vocal is highly processed. I'll just put it that way. Highly processed to where you could plug in any number of pop stars. It could be a song by any number of them. It's very homogenized.
Yeah.
It follows such a pattern that, what was it that I was on? There was, they were talking about, you get right to it in your song. I mean, our attention spans, that's another problem, is that people's attention spans are so short anymore that if you have an intro, if you try to build your song at all, oh, they say, oh, don't even bother, because you got to get right into the chorus or the hook or something within like 10 seconds. It keeps shrinking. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to be doing the outro before I even do the intro on the song. If our if the consumer attention span gets any shorter,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure where we go from here. I hope that maybe there'll be kind of a retro. I think that there might be kind of a curiosity, I hope, for maybe some of the older artists,
Yeah. I mean,
maybe via covers, but by younger artists, but maybe there'll be a renaissance for some of the people that maybe don't rely on auto tune. Just put it that way. Real instruments and
yeah.
real sounds and that sort of thing. That would be nice. I don't know. I don't
Well,
know if
I mean,
that's forever changed.
there's a couple of indicators of what you just mentioned, and I totally agree with you, which is one, um, the major labels are actually buying all the big catalogs of music that got created, um, not presently. What does that mean? We're talking about the 60s, the 50s, um, the,
Right.
the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the reason for that is because music nowadays don't sell. And I give you an example. The Grammys, and I'm not bashing out on the Grammys, right? Because I used to watch the Grammys all the time. I mean, the lowest stats they had was 8 million views last year, right? I believe it was last year or the year before. Before that,
Hmm.
40 million people would watch the Grammys, and I think people are sick of this thing, and that's why you see Adele after 10 years comes out with an album, and it's a huge hit. There's no grid on. There's no what do you call grid on a DAW, meaning the beat is not on the grid all the time. It's by real musicians. The vocals you might fix something here and there, but it's not auto tune from the beginning to end, and
Right.
because that's not natural, that's not human. We like art, right? It's not normal to have the same thing over and over on a high level. That's another thing that I don't understand. We used to have dynamics. Do you remember? You listen to Bob Dylan, you would listen to the Beatles or Rolling Stones. There was dynamics. There was.
Right.
Nowadays there seems to be
It's
like,
just squash.
yeah, it's such highly compressed
Yes.
and auto tune, and everything is robotically to the beat, and that's just not natural. at least not to me. And I've interviewed people like 16 years old on this show, and they say the same thing is fast food music. There's
Yes.
nothing to it. And they listen to soul music or music from the 60s because they can't stand this crap that they're putting out, right?
And that gets back to maybe my frustration that I vented about being obscure, and it actually, I just find it heartbreaking, because a lot of the music that I do, no, it wouldn't be played on top 40 radio. I'm okay with that, because it's some of the stuff that I see in comments on YouTube where people say, oh, why don't they make these? Nobody's making this kind of music anymore. Like Northern Soul from the 70s, or even, stuff like, say, Chic or Shalimar, 80s, even up into the 90s, kind of the, R&B and soul music, that sort of thing, just because that's kind of my realm. But I'm sure it's for other genres as well, that has just gotten so cookie cutter and digitalized in its sound, that it's frustrating, because I want to reach out and say, we are out there, we're making this kind of music. How can I show you? You can take it or leave it. You might listen, and you don't like my music, but at least if there is some way to reach the people that think that nobody is making that kind of music, the music that they like, anymore. So I'm not surprised about. I'm right with you. I saw some of these latest ones where they're buying these back catalogs, and I saw something else too, that an overwhelming amount of the streaming. Did you see that too? That it's back catalog streaming. Well, that's something where I wish this might be kind of a side note, but I think it ties into it. When I was talking about my background, where we had the marching band because there weren't any high schools in our area for our 4th of July parade that had music programs in the school where they actually had marching bands anymore. I can't imagine that. But anyway, the music education is missing.
Yes.
And my thought is that, what happens to the manufacturers? Like, for instance, on the saxophonist, if young kids, if the kids that are going into music now, if a turntable is their instrument, well, then the manufacturers are just going to make more turntables. They're going to stop making saxophones, because it's that you don't actually make the music on that thing. You're playing somebody's music that was played on an instrument, but now you've taken the kids away from. I've had kids, they don't even know what it is when I play gigs. I have adults now that say, oh, is that a trumpet? And I just go, oh my gosh, we are losing a knowledge of music history and all the wide variety of sounds you can make, and the timbres, and what a real one sounds like, versus I've got my keyboard right here, a sample library.
Exactly.
It's a world of difference, but it's so easy to just cook it. You get that formula down there, and put it to a beat track, and then boom.
Yeah.
Now you can make a whole album for your next. They find somebody that's got the look, and they've got the age, and then they build the music around them, and then if they can't sing on tune, they just auto tune. I'm thinking, you remember Milli Vanilli, right? And the trouble they got into in today's music marketplace. That would not have been what happened to them on stage, where the track of them that they were lip syncing to. I don't think anybody would even blink an eye at that now. Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem these days.
No, but one of the things I agree with you to a certain degree. I also noticed something, and this even during the last year of COVID, was I don't know if you've seen this report. This is actually an accurate report, because I was part of the people who were doing this, which was like guitar sales were through the roof. I think it was the highest ever. Like a lot of the online stores were selling instruments like crazy. to the point of they were like out of stock because people during COVID say, hey, you know what? I'm at home. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to learn how to play an instrument. And on that aspect of it, while it is true what he just said, I do see a renaissance of young musicians, especially women. There's a lot of women playing guitar nowadays. I mean, there's always been singers, right? But I see a lot of, if you go on Instagram, there's a lot of young women playing instruments and so forth. So
It's much more common than it used to be. It used to be kind of like, oh, wow, that's a woman. Or like Carol Kay, the famous Wrecking Crew bassist.
yeah,
I mean, she talks about how difficult it was for, to be that amazing, that fantastic. And you still kind of you have to prove to the world that you can play with the boys.
yeah.
But yeah, it's not as uncommon anymore.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
think
good.
I think to a certain degree, people just got fed up and they wanna make great music because hopefully, if I'm right, this wave will pass and it will just be looked at a bad stain on music history, and we move on and we actually have great music back again like we used to. Now, on another note. Can you explain to our listeners what's your creative process? Okay, because you are a multi instrumentalist. You play several instruments. So how does it work for you? Do you go on YouTube and listen and get inspired? Do you just set up your computer and start recording? How does that go? Can you explain?
Well, I'm sure that this is pretty common, but I have different different ways. Like sometimes it's like catching lightning in a bottle. It'll come out of it'll just I'll have an idea for it usually starts with a melody. I usually start with melody. And I think it's because I'm primarily a vocalist and a saxophonist, you can only play one note at a time. So it's a melody instrument. So I usually start there. Sometimes the phone has been wonderful because everybody's always got their mobile phones on them, and every mobile phone has either video record or audio recording, like a little tape recorder. That's how I used to do it back in the day. But I'll hum something or sing the lyrics or play it. The greatest thing was setting up so that I could record fairly easily without a lot of time to get things, set up so that I could record my instruments here at home. So I usually start, with the melody. Like for instance, my two latest songs, those were written on the saxophone. The one that's coming out on February 10th is called Louis Funk, and that was written on my alto. And then I have my tenor saxophone down there. It's not assembled, but it's already come out. It's a blues song, and it was written on my tenor saxophone. And then usually what I do is then I write out a bass line, and I have a 88 key M audio key station anyway. And I've got I do use sample libraries because it's just me. So I'm producer. But yeah, I use my keyboard and write out the rest of the parts. And then I do use, sometimes I do use for drums, I'll either just hand tap it out on my keyboard. I've thought about getting a digital, one of those little drum sets. I think that would be really fun, and it wouldn't be as loud as an actual drum set. I don't have the room for it in here anyway. But yeah, sometimes I'll tap it out, or I'll put together patterns of MIDI patterns and mess them around, mix them up, and then just tailor them to my song, and then get as much of it recorded as I can, as quickly as I can before the inspiration goes away. That's usually the way it goes. Sometimes I'll have songs that I've been performing live that are instrumentals. There's my saxophone features. And then like this actually happened to me on a couple of songs where at some point I was practicing it, and words came to me. And finally, vocal lines came to me and I could hear the harmony parts. So my biggest challenge is I can hear, a lot of times I can hear something fully formed in my head. I have to figure out, okay, where is that? How do I get that created? Can I play that myself, or am I going to have to hire out? And so I've got a backlog of songs because they're not finished. I have a lot of partially finished songs, but sometimes they just change. They go from instrumental and then I come up with something years later. I'll go back and I'll listen to my old files and see if there's anything, or if I should just delete old songs that I never finished. And then every once in a while I'll find one and go, gosh, I totally get it now. I know what to do with this thing. Let's finish it. And then it's a whirlwind again. It's like, boom, it sat on a hard drive for 2 years. Well, in the span of about 4 hours, I got the rest of the ideas out. And now it's just finishing it up and polishing it up. So was that a good answer? I rambled too much on that one.
It's awesome. I mean, I like what you said. What's your favorite tool? Like, what would you say is your favorite tool as a music tool?
Well, as a music tool, well, I guess I would say my saxophone. But as far as the equipment and what I use to actually create the music is, I love Cubase. Okay. I mean, I use Cubase. I love it. I'm comfortable in it. Cause I'm PC based, and then my favorite, I love the Isotope programs for mixing and mastering and effects. And then my favorite virtual instrument suite is Contact. Yeah. In fact, after I get some of these gigs, I need to buy the upgrade because they've got some new instruments. I go, oh my gosh, I got to get gigging so I can buy my upgrade. But yeah, I love.
They always love those upgrades, right? And they also.
Oh yeah.
Because I love Contact too, and they have really good virtual instruments there in their libraries. Now you're planning on going to NAMM perform, right? Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I'm hoping to. I've got to apply. So I guess when that opens, I signed up so that when they're open for submitting video, that I'll be ready to go. Because before the pandemic, that would have been 2019. That I tried to perform there, or I applied to perform, and that didn't work out. So hopefully maybe this time around, I'm sure like everything else, there's just such an onslaught of people applying to perform. So, but hey, if I don't apply to perform, then I definitely know that I won't perform, because I've never been to NAMM, even though I'm from Southern California, where it is, at least not the summer show, but the winter show is, at least as far as I know, it's always been in Anaheim, which is not far from Disneyland. It isn't far from Disneyland, but I've never been, because I think you're supposed to either be connected with a music manufacturer or in music education. I think there usually is, you have to have some sort of a connection to get a pass. It's not just like open to the public.
You can come as a visitor or a buyer as well. You can actually come in as a buyer.
Oh.
But I think the last time I went as a business owner. I've been twice to the show. I don't remember exactly the rules, to be honest with you, so I don't want to give the wrong information out there. But I remember the last time I went as a business owner, and it's just awesome. It was pre-pandemic. It's just awesome. It's awesome to connect and talk with all those people and all that gear, and they have fantastic shows, musicians playing, so a lot of talented people. So some of the people you actually, some famous people and some people you admire, so I highly recommend it to go to everybody, and I hope that this year they actually open up to the public and we can actually visit. That would be great. I think it would be really good for the industry.
Well, it sure looks like they're advertising it as returning to Anaheim early June. So I'm guessing that that means that unless our state does something and locks it down again or makes it just too difficult, that it'll actually be back. So that would be wonderful because I sure would like to go and see all that gear and get to know some of the people that actually make it, make the gear. Who knows? You rub shoulders with the stars
and perform. And also, they have a lot of seminars on music business and marketing. So it's really, really good. I highly advise people to go and invest time there to learn. Now, let's talk about collaborations. You have a collaboration going on, right, with another artist?
Yeah, and I that came to my mind because it's she's actually in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be from across the world. It's going to be a lot of fun because we're going back and forth on she sent me one of the songs that she produced and said, "Hey, well, listen to this. What do you think about this? Can you come up with anything? You find this interesting at all?" And I come up with stuff to just about anything. I'm pretty easy to inspire. There are certain genre and types of music that I can't really come up with anything for, but I immediately went, "Oh yes, absolutely, Kim. Oh, this is exciting. It's going to be fun." So we exchanged stems online because it's wonderful. Again, we've got these opportunities now with the internet and with great bandwidth anymore that you can share your full resolution recording session files. In fact, I haven't done it. Perhaps you have, but I know that there are online real time in Cubase. I know that they have it. I haven't used it, but I know that you can do a virtual recording session online. I haven't done it, so I'm doing it kind of the old-fashioned way where I'm Dropboxing my files and go, "Hey, listen to this." We're also using SoundCloud because that's actually how we met was on SoundCloud. And so now we're collaborating on this one song, and so I can't wait to hear what she's come up with because I sent her an idea that has it has my saxophone, and then it has vocals, but they're not lyrics. They're vocal lines. So they're not lyrics. They're just like oohs and ahs and harmony parts. Because I'm noticing that is definitely a trend in music these days. Is there's vocals, but they sound very much like a loop.
Yeah, there's a lot of oohs and ahs. And
yeah, and I thought, well, okay, I'll give that a try. I'll give it a try. So it has vocals, but there are not lyrics.
Sure.
And then it's got I did some experimenting with my saxophone, running it through like phaser and wah and adding distortion and glitch and all these sorts of things. Because her music's much more contemporary in style than mine, I think. So I think this is I think that we can blend a little bit of the here and now, electronic music sound. Mm-hmm. And I have my saxophone, which is not normally considered something that you'd hear on dance music tracks, or deep house, I think is what her music is considered. I don't know. There's so many genre that I don't really know what they mean. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it is. But hey, if I disguise it to where it's what is that? What is that instrument playing? It's like, believe it or not, that's a saxophone, an old-fashioned saxophone, but it sounds like something else, like a mix between a guitar and I'm not sure what else, a synthesizer. So that's the collaboration. I'm really excited about that one because I haven't really been good about reaching out and collaborating with other artists. I just kind of do my thing, and I have my own timeline, and I just, if I want to get it done, I get it out there and I finish it up. Since it's all me, I don't have to worry about anybody else's schedules. I just get it done and get it out there to the world. But I think that would be another piece of advice that I would say, is that I realized that there are a lot of opportunities for cross promotion, just expanding your audience with collaboration projects. I haven't really taken advantage of that. I haven't been good about that. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I don't know. I just kind of do my thing and I don't want to bother anybody. But this year is going to be the year of trying some different things and stretching and getting out of my comfort zone. That's my thought, is that that's how it feels. 2022 is going to be maybe different places to play, taking chances and overcoming fears, doing new things, and then trying to be much more organized than I have been, and taking the time to put in the work, and then reward myself with, okay, well, I feel like just doodling around, playing, coming up with a song and just diving into it. Well, I can only do that if I get organized, because if I don't get organized and do all the business side stuff, nobody's going to hear it. So I've got a lot of stuff going on, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is music success for you?
Music success is when you can continually expand. To me, I'm very excited that I'm not making the same music over and over again, that I'm constantly learning and I'm improving my product and I'm improving myself. And, music success to me is also having clout, having respect in the community, that you get to the point where you're successful when, or that you're on the right track when you've got people that ask you, hey, do you have any new music? Can you send it to me? We want to play it. That's success. That's when it's like, wow, when people reach out and ask for music, and it's not, here, I've got this song. Will you please listen to it for me? When it turns around and you put something out there like, hey, I'm working on something. Here, check it out. And people contact you, say, hey, I like that. I want to play it. Or, where can I find it? That's success. That's when people actually seek it out and want more, or asking whether you've got something new going on or what you're working on. If you have, where can I support your music? Where can I buy your music? That's success.
Awesome. Ava Lemert, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you here. What's the best way people can connect with you?
Probably my website. I try to keep that up to date with all of my social media links. They're all on there. So it's http:// and it's Ava Lemert, and it's AVALEMERT.com. And then that will link you to my YouTube. Basically my name, Ava Lemert, AVALEMERT / or @ all my handles are, heck, if you Google and you type in Ava Lemert. My biggest challenge there is that sometimes people might spell it with an E. No, it's AVA. That's Ava Lemert. And then,
ladies and gentlemen,
you'll find me.
AVALEMERT.com, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
You can connect with her. Thank you so much for being here. And I just would like to remind our listeners and viewers that all the resources and everything else we've been chatting about in today's episode, you can find it in musicsuccess.com and enter the guest name in the search bar. And the episode, along with all the show notes, will pop right up. Again, thank you so much for being generous with your time. I think I've definitely learned a lot just by talking with you, and I think we share common realities. our love for music and different generations and how things are today. And I'm very hopeful that things will come around, and once again we'll have great music. We already have great music, right? We have all the classics, but I think we are living in a new era in the music industry, and things will definitely turn around. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I wish you
Thank you so much, Rui. I really appreciate it too. It's been fun. I've been excited and nervous at the same time, but
you did
it's really great. I really appreciate it.
you did great.
It's an honor.
Yeah, I wish you all the success. I really do. I hope you come back and we talk about your music again and how you're doing. To all the people back home and the listeners on the podcast, remember, I want you to be successful because the real reason for you to be successful is your success is my success. And don't forget to live your dreams, stay safe. Until the next episode, take care. I'll see you.